But is it not going to be said? Padmara.
With Gamtel G-Fiber, now you can enjoy super fast internet in gigabytes. G-Fiber is affordable, stable, secured, and accessible to homes, businesses, and enterprises. With Gamtel G-Fiber, the future is speed. Gamtel, creating a brighter future in communication.
All right.
Honey, did you remind him that the last time he sent the money, it was not enough to buy all the provisions?
Oh, sorry, I forgot to tell him.
Are you guys talking about money transfer to buy provisions?
Yes.
But don't you know about Baluwo?
Baluwo? What is Baluwo?
Baluwo is a service that your son can use to send provisions directly to you guys from the shop. And you don't have to worry about the exchange rate.
Tell me how Baluwo works.
It's very simple.
Just log on to baluwo.com and shop, or download the app on your phone. You can shop on the website or using the app to buy online basic products for your family and friends. With Baluwo, you decide what your money is spent on. Your money, your choice. Buy online products for your family and friends in the Gambia, Senegal, Nigeria or Mali. Baluwo, better than sending money.
Are you thinking of owning your dream homes? EJ Investment is here for you. Secure our quality bungalows with 2, 3 or 4 bedrooms, or our story buildings 3 or 4 to 5 bedrooms at very affordable prices with flexible payment plans at our Sanyang Seaview Estate, where you can enjoy the cool breeze with modern infrastructure such as tar roads, covered drainage system, modern electrification with street lights, gated entrance with security posts, and social amenities such as gas station, shopping mall, medical clinic, park, schools, children daycare, and a lot more. Our dedicated team of professionals will keep the estate clean at all times, provide security and patrol team within the estate premises, install latest technologies such as CCTV, Wi-Fi, home network installation, solar panel, and power backup system. Also, check out for our additional home facilities and interior design service such as premium tiling, wall plaster, home landscape, fingerprint home lock, and a lot more. Visit our office at Senegambia Kololi Highway and get a free site visit tour, or contact us on 4464838. WhatsApp us on 3259220. Or you can visit our Facebook page or Instagram on EJ Investments. EJ Investments, we are first in properties.
In communication, connectivity is everything. We ensure that the links never sleep. Quantities and qualities, all in our data service, providing efficient, reliable voice and data service. We believe if you're not up to speed, then you're going backwards. Communications have to flow as fast as the speed of light. Whatever business you're in, having someone who understands your needs is critical. That is why we just don't offer you technology, we offer you solutions. Enjoy Gamcel's internet broadband anytime, anywhere. Your national operator, Gamcel, Yaibaram.
Agada.
Mbijan aganyani.
Albaka.
Mbaka important.
Yo, nga transfer la sto.
Ya transfer la sto.
Ha, code nyingi.
Okay. What's on? Nsila ID soto.
Sa soto. Sorry. Agada.
Mbijan bro.
Albaka.
Mbaka.
Bara alla service o tariya.
Mbale.
Mo ki janna nun kunu bara tariya.
Jannom yona forest de bureau. Gambia tonkon na no mbali ya bere. Birim koyna fo kato.
Bari si kodo kino kato ni fo bolong blabe no.
56 branches mola soto Gambia ja.
Ha?
Gambia kono ani Gambia bantala bankol. Nka kodo kiya bere. Kodo sifa fo falindiro fo nyaadi lafta memmen na kodi to poto nin kodi maraw. Jannom number 1 ti nyonta. Andum fana nata anoda enterprise sotale. Wolam nyindi ko domorol fana kol fana be firale de dadi ma ni domorol ni fana beteata. Gambia dawda yalo nga fa kendol sotale je.
Wo moyo diat.
Apelenta
ni wo ka ni na lafta nyelen kendol e bina.
Yalo bukani la ko la baraka ba.
Yalo ndel chosano lo.
Abaraka.
The show this week, a rise in the COVID-19 cases in the Gambia. Where are they coming from, or what are we getting wrong? Inside stories from Mile 2 and other prisons in the Gambia. Also, we go to the National Youth Council, where the famous and now apparently popular Executive Director Lamin Davo has been given the sack. We look at the ramifications and the reactions from the youth members of our community in this week's brunch. Now, to help me put sense into all this, on the far left is Demba Kande, is a lecturer at the University of the Gambia. Demba Kande, thank you very much. And Dr. Mustafa Bittaye is the Director of Health Services at the Ministry of Health. Welcome, Doctor.
Okay, thank you.
Now, Lala Touray is a youth activist. Lala, welcome.
Thank you very much.
Good. Let's go straight to the point, to the 3 points we've raised. There has been a slow but steady rise in the case of COVID-19 in the Gambia. We will have the latest update, but we are well into the 40s now. I guess we will talk about what happens to the restrictions, what is causing this thing. Is it still imported cases, or this is internal transmission, or what are we getting wrong? Demba, let me first begin by asking you. We are now into 45 or mid-40s, if you like, in the amount of cases we've registered. And of course, you can argue that in the last couple of weeks, we have a transmission which is higher than when we used to have before. Is it because of relaxation of the restrictions, or is because we are having imported cases either from Senegal, mainly from Senegal, and most recently by air from Europe, etc.? What is your observation?
Thank you very much. I think that's a very, very important question. If you look at it, most of the cases so far, they're actually imported cases. And that's good news for the Gambia. I'm sure Dr. Bittaye will talk a little bit more about that. But generally, the fact that we have more imported cases is good news in the sense that we don't have a lot of active community transmission. As such, we could say that the authorities are doing a good job in terms of trying to contain that. But what we've seen also, and this is actually what I would assume had led to the rise in the number of cases, is the relaxation of the precautions, especially in terms of border entries. What are we doing at the level of the border? Of course, the Gambia is surrounded by Senegal. And it's extremely difficult to actually close the borders and make sure that nobody enters without proper procedures. But notwithstanding, we've also seen now the opening up of the airspace. We saw SN Brussels landed on the 22nd, and that has already, we've seen a case from that as well. So as we move on, we will, and the more we continue to have more people coming into the country, especially from Corona hotspot, we should expect more cases in the country. Now, what does that mean for us? Limited resources. We've already seen a lot of money being spent into Corona and a lot of questions coming in and out. But the important point here is that I think the message is that we still have a lot more cases of imported cases of COVID-19 than we have in the local transmission.
Before I come to the expert, Lala, what are your views? Why do you think there is a rise? What are we getting wrong?
I believe I will have to agree with what Mr. Kanda said. It will be really difficult for us as a country to stop people coming into the country from Senegal totally, because we have border villages. Like you go to certain villages, for example, when we're doing our food distribution initiative, we went to a village in Sierra, it's called Nyoro, and people from Senegal, it's a walking distance from Senegal. So you realize...
They came to the village when you were there?
No, they didn't come to the village, but the village is a walking distance. Yeah, so you realize that it's very difficult to completely stop people from coming into the Gambia from Senegal. And we've seen people, or we've heard of cases or instances where people from the Gambia left, went into Senegal and came back into the country. So I believe a lot of more resources needs to be put in place to make sure you know, more precautions are taken in making sure people are not allowed to take these other routes to get into the country. If at any point people get into the country, it has to be through the borders, which is going to be very difficult with all these satellite community villages, of course. But I think we need to do a lot of more awareness raising campaigns, because if people in these villages know, if they allow people from Senegal to come into the Gambia through their villages, it's going to be a risk to their lives and people and other people in the Gambia, then I believe they will take more action to stop people from coming into the country from their part of the country. So I believe we need to do a lot more to raise awareness, to encourage people to do a lot of community policing if we are going to take steps to, you know, stop the importation of cases from Senegal.
I'll still spare an expert, but I'm going to Kande. Kande, all right, you know, there have been a little bit relaxation in terms of the restrictions. For example, mosques were allowed to open, although the officials' statement was for Friday and Sunday, respectively for Islam and Christianity. But then we see now every day people flock in mosques for the Maghrib or the Zikri or the Fajr prayers. That's fun. We also have seen that grade 9, and of course, University of the Gambia, they've opened for exams, etc., etc. Now, I mean, are you not, don't you have an indication that probably this, you know, these measures, the relaxation of these measures taken can really be a source of further transmission?
It is certainly.
Difficulties in social distance in the Gambia.
Certainly. I mean, naturally, our society is a very communal nature, very social. So in terms of enforcing distancing is a very, very difficult task. But what I want to really flag
your experience at the university these days.
My experience has been that we practice a lot of distancing, because also remember, I come from this university where we have a very small school. I come from the School of Journalism and Digital Media. Our average class size is about 18, 19 students. So that's really small. But if you go to other schools where you have quote-unquote large populations, then it becomes extremely difficult. And they come to our school sometimes and we see that there's actually zero distancing as far as that is concerned. But what I want to point out is that in terms of the relaxing of these precautions, there has been no proper planning. And even if there has been planning, we did not strictly follow the planning. Because the idea of having this precaution is to understand COVID-19 and, you know, slow down the, you know, transmission rate. Now, if you're relaxing those, you have to plan it in a way that it doesn't happen, you know, abruptly. But what we have seen is that there's not been proper planning. You know, the mosque and the churches opening, and then you have the schools, and everything just suddenly, the transport system, you know, we're hearing that now instead of 50%, they're going to 75%. And naturally, those of us who use public transport, you can see that people are actually, you know, going in full. I mean, the drivers are actually filling up their cars and they just, you know, it's like pre-corona time, so to speak. So really there's need for, you know, proper planning and then, you know, ease of restriction, but, you know, in a timely and very well planned out manner. Otherwise, we're going to have a very, very serious situation. Yeah.
You want to
I think we have a problem with enforcement because even before these precautions that we were subjected to, you know, go by, with the announcement of the declaration of the state of public emergency, people did not respect the regulations that were in place, and there was not much done by the authorities to enforce the regulations that we were supposed to go by as people to prevent the spread of the COVID-19. So even when they were, when we were supposed to go by these precautions, a lot of people did not go by them. You go to marketplaces, they were filled up. What happened on Eid, or day before Eid? So these were all serious things that we needed the authorities to take into consideration and fully enforce the regulations that we were supposed to go by during the state of public emergency. And now we've seen that it's actually getting worse because we've normalized not practicing these regulations. We've normalized having to...
Not taking it seriously.
Yeah, so basically, so I think more needs to be done, not just from the side of the government, but from our side as people. We need to take more precautions and, you know, help curb the spread of COVID-19.
Okay. Dr. Mustafa Bittaye must have answers for all these things. Doctor, let me start with we have, just in the last couple of weeks, if you like, we just into 10 or more cases, because we were in the 20s for a long time, suddenly we're touching the 40s. And you told us in your various news conferences that most of them are imported cases who are quarantined, who are trying to cross the border and are quarantined. Now, the government, of course, have announced measures, you know, which, of course, we know, in fact, are misconceived, you know, in many places, like mosques were only meant to be open on Fridays or on Sundays, but people still flood and other things. Now, tell us, in your experience, what is responsible for this steady but, you know, slow rise in the numbers? What have gone wrong, or what do you observe is happening?
Yeah, so thank you very much. I think that there are many factors involved, and you know, so if you look at the cases, about 80% or more are all imported. But luckily, most of them are already picked when they are already in quarantine. So that's a very good measure that's happening. But if you look at the Gambia, the borders of the Gambia, almost all the borders of the Gambia, almost every point in the border is a potential point of entry. So you see how difficult it will be to police that. So it means what happens is sometimes the officers are there in the morning, and then people are communicating with people in the other side. And then maybe after, when they are gone, then they let them in. They come in. Or some of the borders, like she was saying, it's just a walking distance. You don't need a vehicle or anything. You just come in. And so you wait and gauge. But we are getting a lot of information from 1025. People call us to say, oh, this guy has come. Like, I'm somebody renting.
Yeah.
Like
Go ahead.
Someone is renting in my house and has suddenly come or somebody who is renting in our neighborhood has suddenly come back from Senegal and he's attending a wedding or this or that. So it depends, or those type of information. Or somebody has just passed our
village.
Our village. So we are getting a lot of information from the people, and this is helpful. And this is because of the community engagement exercises, I think, that the ministry and all other partners are doing. They are talking to people, and they are getting us. The other thing is, if you look at it, Senegal surrounds us in 3 areas.
Yes.
And it's very helpful that they themselves were doing regional blockade. So within Senegal, movement was even restricted. But now, even the airspace I land, yes, people are able to come in. So what is happening is now those restrictions are not more there, and people now can come freely up to our border of Gambia. Before, before you reach the border of Gambia, you even struggle within. But now those restrictions are not there, so the influx is higher.
So, does that mean that we in the Gambia, our border controls will have to be put in place, or is our government also contemplating, freeing the border?
I think the whole world now is looking at COVID as a means of something that we have to live with. So we have to reach a level, because you remember we are in different stages. So for example, when we went to the airport and you talk to some people who are in the diaspora, they say, oh, but when I go to UK, this is what they do for me. But it's different. We are in different stages of the pandemic. So some countries, they are lucky that they've prevented it. It has not maybe entered their country even. So some countries are in the containment stage. They're just having sporadic cases. And some are having a lot of community transfer and a lot of other things. So you cannot compare us with Senegal or America. Because you are in America, you say no. So the measures we take are different. If we pass a stage where now we cannot do sporadic, we don't have everything, like he was saying, we already have community transmission every time. So it may not be logical anymore to have these measures that we are doing. We have to change to other measures. But as of now, we are in a stage where we can really almost trace almost all the cases. We know what's happening, so we are trying to contain it. Yeah,
what happened with airports? I mean, our understanding is that, okay, these few flights, or this flow that has come and a few that will follow, is, it's just simply the case of Gambians who were ordinarily resident in the Gambia but have gone for official work or something and got stranded. So the special flight was organized to bring them into the country. And it doesn't necessarily mean that the airport is open. Is that the case?
So I know that by law, the Gambians anywhere should be able to return home once it's law, because you don't have anywhere but your home. So if a Gambian, for whatever reason, come up to our borders, he should be taken in. We have to put in measures, we have to ensure that he's safe. But if you don't take in your own citizens, who will take them? So they will be stranded in other places, they will be suffering and other. So if, for example, we have people who come up to our borders, we have to ensure that we take care of them. Other countries, they are even doing more. They go and look at where their citizens are, for example, and go and bring them and ensure that they are safe. But sometimes it has to do with resources, it has to do with the capacity. If Gambia decides to do that, go and bring everyone here, are we able to take care of them?
Exactly.
And what diseases are they bringing?
Let's talk about this particular flight. About 150, and then your minister came with a statement to say, unfortunately, 4 people escaped from this thing. Like you said, if the airport is open now, it is not, we must make it clear, because what the government said was this is just a special case to get stranded Gambians here. And there might be few other flights like that nature, or people bringing humanitarian aid. If it continues, in a day or two, you can get 200, 300 people. You lamented the fact that there is an acute shortage of accommodation and other arrangements. What will happen?
So we are looking into those things and to see even what other modalities we are going to put in place for those who are coming, whether they can also help with it, and many, many other things we are looking at. But as it stands now, if they come, we have to try to find a way of ensuring that they are not left in the community like that. Yes, with potentials of having the disease and transferring it in this community. So that one we will have to ensure that happens.
So when they are quarantined, how many times do you conduct tests on them?
So this one, I think, we don't have enough credit for that, because we don't go around maybe talking about it. But this one, Gambia did so well. Okay. When it was not famous, when nobody was doing it, when it was actually being criticized, we decided to test this people in quarantine. Because the logic before was that this disease usually start to show symptoms around 4 to 5 days.
5 days.
So within 2 weeks, most of them will show symptoms. And if they don't show symptoms, then after quarantine, you should let them go, because then that will reduce the number of tests you do, and you save tests and all that. Okay. But as a country, after starting it sometime, then we started to test them. Initially, we were doing 1 test before they go out. Okay. And then, retrospectively, we left some people to go home using the initial guidelines. Okay. Then we went for them again and tested them. And luckily, I think that time we had 5. And so it became a policy. Now we started to do even...
So whoever is quarantined, mandatory, you're going to be tested?
Yes, and now we do 2 testing. Okay. We do when you come in the beginning and before you leave. And that now has even become almost practice. Internationally. WHO is now also having that. Yeah. Initially, it was in their study guidelines. They say if you want to do it for study purposes, for investigative purposes, but now it's even been encouraged.
So on this particular flight, from the very first test, you discovered one is positive.
Yes. So that was not the whole. Yes, I think we might be able to. That was not the whole batch tested. Okay. So the results for the whole batch will come in. But among the people who were tested, we already have one who was positive.
So what will happen? Okay, of course, I mean, all passengers are already in quarantine now, isn't it?
Yes.
So will this, of course, does this suggest in any way that there is a potential that more people on that plane could have been infected by that particular case?
Yes, and that's why there is the need for quarantine. Sometimes you don't get the disease, whereas you're in UK. Transit, on transit you may get it because you were sitting with somebody or you went to the same toilet and you know, some of the things. So you don't know. So that's why it's very critical that when they come, they are tested. I remember recently, about 3 or 4 days ago, one of the ones we had, when he came, he was tested, was negative. Okay. And around, when we were doing the second testing, he was positive. So that means that probably he might got it from the flight or just before coming, and now during the incubation period, and we've tested and it's positive. So,
is there any guarantee that one couldn't get it at the quarantine place itself?
Whether there is guarantee, we've put in all the measures to ensure that nobody gets it. From that, we ensure that they are told
they have rooms of their own.
Everybody is in your rooms except in exceptional cases. Yes, there are exceptional cases when, for example, you are a minor and you are with some, or both of you are minors and you want to stay. So there are some exceptional cases when you can stay together and maybe you choose to as a family and we find the medical reasons for that. But otherwise, everybody is in your own room and you are encouraged to be.
So all the more reason now that we certainly are going to face huge logistical problems if we're going to open the airport now, because if every flight has to have for 150 passengers, each allocated a room of their own. Well, come on. At the end of a week, you can have 20,000 people. Do you have 20,000 rooms who will stay for 2 weeks?
So we are looking at modalities and best practices and to see what will happen if that one. But we will certainly come out with guidelines as to how we do, because things could change, you know, like in UK and other places, they keep changing there. And like, for example,
the difference being that it is much easier to self-isolate in Europe yourself than in Africa.
Yes, like it's true. Here in Gambia, like I was quoting a study that was done recently, which showed that, you know, the amount of people who stay in one house in the Gambia, I think average is 6, and they were sitting in certain areas where it's about 12 in one under the one room.
Any observations?
I was going to wonder in terms of coordination, because COVID-19 is an all-encompassing pandemic. There are economic issues, there are social issues, there are security issues, and so on. To what extent is the coordination at government level? Because that's very, very critical in terms of dealing with the pandemic.
So the pandemic affects every facet of life, you know, and it affects every area in this country. So we have different stakeholders. For example, you have health. We are looking at life mainly, not property, not livelihood. We're looking at all that, but like we are more interested to ensure that nobody dies, everybody continues to be alive, and you have also advocates from other sides. So that's why there is the whole government working towards this pandemic. So we come with our guidelines that, look, this is our advice, even at the National Assembly, and the National Assembly will tell us, no, this is what we want, then we come to the best method for the country, looking at all the stakeholders. So that's why there's a good structure. You have the cabinet, you have the interministerial committee, where very relevant ministers sit almost every day and discuss these issues. Everybody brings advice, and then we come out with decisions. And each sector also, they have, for example, the health sector, we have a response team that is looking with partners that almost sit every day, every morning, except Sundays, that discuss all these things, what is going on, what are the best practices, what should we do next, and all that. So you coordinate that aspect of the response. And then the livelihood, you know, you have NDMA, they are also doing their part, making sure that people are having food. And then you have tourism, for example, say the economy is being affected, what should we do, the hotels need to do this. So it's a government, because pandemic is affecting every facet, every area of the life. And all of us are stakeholders. And everyone is pushing for what you think is what best for the country and the method. And then we come out with a system that suits the country. So it's not one system fits all countries. So you have to see what suits your country best.
Can you take this opportunity to tell us, update us now, how many cases do we have? Active, recoveries, death?
So for now, we have 26 recoveries and 44 cases.
So total 44.
44 now.
26.
We'll be having some results today also.
Today
that will
results.
come out. So
let's hope you don't announce another case for more today.
We hope so.
And these tests are from those under quarantine?
Yes, yes. So, no, not only from them, but it includes them.
Includes them.
Yes.
Now, you said you have now got a laboratory of our own at Kotu. People think with this, I mean, the testing, opportunities for testing will increase. But is that the case now? What policy do you have on testing? Should we think that at some point it will be mandatory, everybody will have to be tested by force?
So what we are saying is that initially we had a case definition. So the case definition initially included a history of travel, that you have a history of going to one of these hotspot countries, or you have a history of contact, and then you have these symptoms of, let's say, flu-like symptoms. But now, because we want to do more testing, we have now removed a history of contact and history of travel. So now anybody who comes to these facilities with flu-like symptoms, should be tested. So it means that we'll be testing more people.
If I come complaining of sickness, what about, I may be walking and I'm a carrier, and how do I, if I don't want to be tested? Is there any measure that for example, all workplaces, you have introduced, all workplaces must conduct tests, or all schools, etc., etc. That's going to raise a lot of logistics.
No, that one, we are doing it periodically. Like recently, we did some testing in some areas, in Banjul even, recently. So we look at certain areas and say, we want to do targeted testing. Because
but again, it's not mandatory, it's just voluntary.
Yes, in those cases, we come to the place and we see that maybe this is a garage, or this is a port, or this is some place, and there's a likelihood of a lot of contacts with people who might have. So we say, okay, we do testing just to see the gauge. But we want to do also, like we said, we've expanded the case definition, and we'll be doing more testing in the facilities. So anyone with symptoms like that will be tested. So once we've done that very well, then we can go to the next level where we go to houses, maybe, just like South Africa is doing, and say that this area, we want to test every household and go to the houses and test them, just to get an idea of what is happening in the communities.
Do you have any observations for that?
Yeah, I understand there's something called the Quarantine Bill, and I understand Quarantine Act or something, and I understand that a lot of people do not know about it. Going by the act, is there punishment or something that people have to, basically something that it holds people accountable for escaping quarantine or for coming into the country and not reporting themselves? And also, is there a coordination of effort between the Ministry of Health and the Ministry of Women's Affairs? Because globally, there is an increase of SGBV cases since the lockdown started. And the Gambia, we've not done any research to show if the state of public emergency has had any effect or has led to the increase of SGBV cases in the Gambia.
That is
sexual and gender-based violence.
That's people fighting in their rooms with their wives or what?
That's people beating their wives assaulting women.
Because they are locked up in one place.
Well, sexual violence is not just women, it's both men and women. But if you go by the numbers, you realize that more women are victims of sexual violence and gender-based violence, especially in the Gambia. So in other countries, there have been measures taken by government. So is there a coordination of effort between the Ministry of Health and the Ministry of Women's Affairs, especially the access that women accessing SRH facilities during the lockdown? Because you realize that a lot of women had difficulties previously. So what measures have been taken to bring about change during the lockdown?
Wow, so many good questions. So first of all, yes, there's an act that allows us to quarantine people. It states that if any airdrome, for example, leaves from anywhere and comes, and even from a ship, we are responsible for the preservation and promotion of health, according to the act. And even within the country, the ministry can decide. If you look at the act, for example, the minister can pronounce that can pronounce an area to be an infected area, and he can decide to lock down that place and all that. And also, you know, the act also gives powers to the health services to be able to quarantine anyone we suspect, you know, needs to be quarantined and all that. Yeah. So yes, those powers are there, but I think the good thing is that those powers can even be used when state of emergency is out. So you can still use those powers in outside the state of emergency. The state of emergency made it easier because you have regulations and then you use it. But this one will help us even outside.
But even after that, the act comes,
still, yes, you can still use. So that's why we can bank on that afterwards. But that doesn't allow it. If you look at the act, it even allows us for the restriction of certain things in the market. You know, as a health service, if we think that it's injurious or infectious, we can say that these markets can be closed, these streets and all that. It gives us all the power. It is there, and we can use them outside of the state of emergency. But during the state of emergency, it gives us more powers, even for social distancing, for not greeting, for wearing masks and all that. We can do that easily.
I mean, the powers to act to prevent people has always been there.
Yes.
Okay, all right.
Yeah. So, but he asked a very important question, and which is something that, you know, we are trying to catch up. You know, most countries during the pandemic just focused on COVID, COVID rapid response, and you forgot about the other sectors. And then we've registered a lot of gains in those sectors. And if you don't keep your mind, do something about it, you might lose all those gains. And what he's asking is about that. So now you have pregnant women who needs to go see their doctors and all, but they would rather stay at home. And then they end up having complications, and they say, so what is going to happen? And we are doing measures to ensure that they observe social distancing, they do that, but they are still sane. And those who need their vaccinations also, so that we don't get emergence of new diseases or the old disease. So they should go, but they should observe all these things, and then they will be prevented from that. Like he said, there's a lot of work being done on gender-based violence in the country. Like recently, for example, we even conducted one study, but that was not during COVID, it was just outside COVID. And what is being reported in Europe and others may not be typical here, but we have to really watch out for it.
Because maybe like, Lala, what happens in Europe, and everybody stays, they're more closeted in their homes than us. You know, maybe that's why there are more cases of, you know, gender violence there than here.
Well, here we have a lot.
Oh, really?
Yes, you'll be surprised. Like we recently did a study where we looked at pregnant women, and we asked them, you know, in the last 2 weeks, what happened. We fill a questionnaire for them where if you answer 2 or 3, you will. That means that actually violence had happened, even you without knowing.
But is that due to COVID or?
No, that was before the COVID. Yeah, we just finished that study, and I'm telling you that it's very common here. Yes, it's very common.
All right, can we, before we exhaust this topic, I have one more question, but then get that.
Well, moving on, are we going to see, for instance, more stricter applications of the restrictions, what is left of the restrictions in terms of wearing face masks and so on? We're going to see that. And beyond that, I mean, I think there's also a need for us to continue to engage the public more, to be a bit more, responsible, like Lala mentioned earlier on, people practicing this, observing this regulation on their own without waiting for someone to come and, enforce that.
You've talked about a very difficult area. So that is like the change of behavior is so difficult. It's not only affected by knowledge. You may have the knowledge, but a lot of other things can affect your behavior. You know, your perception about the disease can affect it. Some people, they have all the knowledge, but they perceive that, this disease doesn't affect us seriously. So there are many other areas you need to look at which affects not only the knowledge, that change of behavior. So yes, that's one aspect we are doing. We are really communicating. I mean, I am here to talk more about COVID. Every day we are in the TVs, radios to talk about COVID. So the knowledge is going. Then the community engagement, to engage the people in the community so that they do their own things to see is also going on. But that alone doesn't sometimes lead to change of behavior alone. So, but what he's saying is the best. The best method is for people to reach that level where they are that conscious and agree to do the measures that we say, and then imbibe it in them, and then go ahead with it. That would have been the best. But we must have a caveat to make sure that we enforce it. Otherwise, it doesn't happen. And like he said, there's likelihood that we will, because we would have been very happy to just say, everybody now wear a mask.
Yeah.
But you have to consider a lot of other things.
Yeah.
So, and those considerations are going, because if you say people wear masks and the masks are not available, the right types are not available, the resources for them to have it is not available, and all that. So government looked at all that, and I think we are working on something like a regulation to come out.
Okay, now you are a doctor, and of course, even before, you are also familiar with other trends in the Gambian health system, apart from this COVID. Now, people are saying we may have very few cases compared to many places around us, but maybe this is likely because we didn't conduct tests. But also, others are saying, okay, people are not tested, but we haven't seen a queue of sick people in our hospitals. Because that's another indication. That would have been an indication that, well, people might not be testing, but they're getting sick, and people are saying that they're sick of COVID. Also, in other areas, you will hear statistics like the rate of of death, the spate of death within a particular period. Can I ask you, in your observation and experience in the medical field, since the outbreak of the COVID, what would you say have been, is it going to be correct to say there have been more deaths, rate of deaths in our hospitals than before the COVID? Or would it be even sensible to relate the number of deaths we have to perhaps they've been probably influenced by COVID or etc.?
Yeah, so with the advent of the social media,
yes.
So every day, for example, even for maternal mortality, every death is now publicized and everybody knows.
Yes.
And so even that's why last year, even though our maternal mortality compared to the previous year was lower, but the sensitivity, the agitation was higher, which was good, because we think that people should continue to agitate until no woman dies again during giving birth. So that was good, and it keeps us on our toes, and we keep seeing. So what is happening is, we have the evidence, we can bring it, but anecdotally, we don't see the increase in deaths. So what is happening, because if you are, because you would have seen it in the books, in the Facebook and everywhere, because the same page, they will post it many times.
So that means it is the publicity about deaths that is now bigger than previously.
Yes, yeah, that has happened a lot. But what you can see is, if there was, if there is increase in death, we would have seen it in our facilities.
That's what I'm
then
asking.
we will see a lot of pneumonia. We will see, but we are not overwhelmed. Yes, respiratory diseases and others in our facilities, and it would have increased, and then we would have noticed a cluster, and quickly maybe.
And queues and problems. So those have not been seen.
No. I think this is going to help if, like I said, if people understand. I think because we are not having those. People have not accepted that this is a serious disease in Gambia.
Because these things are.
Yeah, these things have not happening. You've not seen anybody who died. You don't know anyone who's died or who has this sickness. So that's the problem. Because of that, we are not praying for that. We don't want to reach that level. But that's why people are not taking it very, understanding it very well, I think. I think that has affected the perception about the disease, because you've not seen anyone with the disease. So even some journalists were saying that they don't trust it, because they've not seen anybody. They've not seen anybody with the disease. So.
Yeah, of course, yes. I know. But let's not pray that we will have to really see deaths before we could believe it. That will be very terrible. That will be too late. Okay, finally now, on this topic, there have been restrictions, and and we've seen people either misunderstood them, or they are not observing them, or they've perceived it wrongly. For example, the ngentes have come back. The weddings, christenings have all come back in full. I've been to villages. I see that people are behaving as if we are pre-COVID time. So, can you enlighten us? What is the policy on how many people can go to a wedding or a christening?
So you see the pronouncement that came did not say anything about that. It says all other measures remain the same, so including all the social distancing. So what many people are quoting is a document that came out from Minister of Health, which was, because internally we are always discussing and making regulations and guidance. So this document was being developed by us to say guidance on mass recommendation on mass gatherings or gathering. So that is, if there was supposed to be a gathering that must be held, mass gathering for some reason, what are the measures that needs to be taken? What should be the number maximum? If we are supposed to, we are just working ahead of time. And this document was sent to certain people for their input. And that's what went out. Yes, and then people thought that now there's mass gathering, because that was just a recommendation in that document, which is not yet It's not yet, yes, it's not yet finalized. We were saying the 100, and these things must be in place, this thing must be in place, and all other things. But that document is not from the government. It was just an internal communication, what guidance we are developing before we reach that level. Once we reach that, it will be out, but it's not out. So, but that's not really.
So basically, when you are saying that people must not gather in large numbers for a christening or for a wedding.
Yes, yes. Yeah, so there was a one that came out which said within the rooms it should be 10. And outside I don't remember. I think it's 50 or what. But I don't remember. But that's a long time ago.
So if I go, for example, to Brufut now and meet 200 people, attending a wedding, if I am not happy with that, I'm concerned. I call 1025. What would happen?
So normally they will
be able to send the police to stop them.
So normally they can forward it. There are certain things that are within their domain, and they can just quickly do it. If it is about the rapid response team or about contact tracing, they will quickly tell those people. If it is related to security, they will push it to the security and they handle it.
But am I allowed to do that?
Yes.
I can find a gathering, secretly call the police and say, these people are gathering in large numbers there.
Yeah. I think
can do that secret.
Yes, yeah. I mean that's
Anybody can do that.
That's not a bad thing. I don't think you should see it as secret. I spoke with some.
I mean, if you do it publicly, you may be linked.
No, I mean, yes, no. The connotation that it will be secret and it's something that you are hiding and it's not good. That's what I don't want to go out. It should be something everyone is supposed to do.
Even proud to do
too proud to do. Like we have some very senior people who will see somebody come and they will call us and tell us that we have a Senegal. Sorry, I'm mentioning. You have someone from a foreign country with a community transmission. Has come in and it's a duty as a country for your country. So people should be proud to do that. It's not like you're an informer, you are this or that. You are just helping your country so that we can safeguard the lives here, inshallah.
Okay. Doctor, thank you very much for that. We'll perhaps in our closing stage we will revisit the COVID situation. Now we move on to the TRRC. We were all appalled, really. Not that we are surprised when we saw serving prisoners, and serving prison officers being paraded before the TRRC and narrating stories that really shocked the nation in terms of how the prisoners themselves are being kept, the condition of detention or imprisonment there, if you like, and the way the people who are employed to run the place have really behaved. Let me start with you again. Were you shocked or surprised as to how the prison conditions was being run?
Absolutely shocked, but definitely not surprised. I've been following developments, especially in the prisons and generally human rights situation in the Gambia, even under Jammeh. So I'm aware of some of these things to a large extent, even before now. But sometimes the extent and the detail with which these inmates and wardens have described what happened in Mile 2 particularly, it's horrific. It totally tells a very, very different picture, and you can see that the very idea of why you have a prison is not even it does not come close to why we need a prison. It's more of a center for punishment, a center for degrading and inhuman treatment of individuals.
Absolutely.
And that's something that every Gambian should be horrified of. And I do hope that, sadly, there are still elements of that in the present prisons, unfortunately. So I do hope that some of these things will, over time, go away and we'll go back to a prison system where it's more of correction, not punishment, more of maintenance in the individual and making sure that they're fit for society or social.
Doctor, how did you, for example, you might be thinking that, well, how about if somebody was already sick in this? There were cases of people getting sick, denied treatment on time or not totally. So how did you react to that?
Yeah, for me, unfortunately, I've been before those times. I've been going to the.
No, the COVID has taken all your time.
Yeah, even before this COVID, I used to go to sometimes to the prisons to attend some of their patients and all, and I used to see how the conditions were. And it was not the best, and the access to medicines and like you said and all. So, but I think those things now we will see how it can be better. Even from our point of view, we are working closely with the prisons. So they've sometimes requested some things we give them. And the prisons, even in the COVID, is very important. Because, if somebody...
I think the government released some prisoners to avoid congestion, or to reduce congestion.
Because it's a very conducive environment for the spread. So if somebody comes in, if you go to the remand those days, how it was, it's a very conducive environment for the transmission of the disease. So we are working closely with them on how to make sure we work on that.
But the general outlook of the place on that Jammeh, okay, the situation still can be relevant in terms of health. I mean, efficient and timely medical intervention when situations like that happens. That is still a concern.
Yes, and I don't think we should pass the buck totally to the prisons. That's partly under our responsibilities to ensure that anybody sick anywhere, we should be able to take care of them. And partly we should ensure that we have a good system that links them.
Wouldn't it be sensible to post or to put up a health post of personnel who are independent of the management of the prisons, or who are there permanently, whose work is to treat everybody, depending on whether they are which is independent of the prisons authorities. Isn't that not sensible?
I think it's a very good suggestion, but it has to, maybe the act has to change. But what happens is we've been working together, and for example, recently there's a request for us to post someone there. Yeah, so we have, but the access we work closely with them. Like they have also their own medical team, and that works closely with them. And sometimes we support them with doctors, with people to review from the EFSTH. Like recently they've asked, and we try to support them with those things. So I think it would be good if we work together more closely on that. But generally, there's need for a lot of improvement. Yeah.
You're a child actor, or rather a young activist. You must, and there were questions like how juvenile inmates were treated, etc., etc. How do you react to that? What do you observe?
I think when people are sent to prison, their rights to freedom of movement are restricted, and some of their rights are taken away. But that does not mean that the state should not continue to provide them the right and freedom they should have to quality health care, to good food, to a conducive environment where they learn from the mistakes that they made previously, and help build their lives for when they get out of prison, if they're people serving prison terms that they have to come back into societies later on. It is a violation of their rights as human beings that they have to be kept in under such circumstances, under such conditions. From the building structures, they've been there since colonial times, and it is really sad that post-colonial Gambia, we are still allowing prisoners to stay in those structures that were made by the colonial masters in the 50s, 40s, and we talk about the food. We usually have trainings with prison officers, and you realize sometimes they talk about how prison officers themselves have to use their money to buy food for the prisoners, which is not done, which is completely unfair to the prisoners. And I think if people are sent into prison, the state needs to provide services for them where they can, it should be a rehabilitation center where people are helped to realize their potential. People are helped to explore their potential, their skills. So when they come out, they can be better people, not just for themselves, but their families, our community, our country. Because these are people who can be able to, contribute their part immensely into the vibrant socio-economic development of our country. But that is if the state provides facilities for them to be able to rehabilitate, to be able to, work on their mistakes and improve.
And just to piggyback on that, because the state is already actually investing a lot of funds in terms of managing these prisons. So if you treat prisoners as, byproducts or, subhuman beings who don't need servicing, who don't need reforming and rehabilitation, then you're losing. But like Lala mentioned, if you rehabilitate them, you reform them, you correct them, they can come back and become productive members of society. So in that way, you're not losing by investing in them and investing in the prison system. I do hope that this thing will change, because moving on, we've seen that the Gambia has now signed the UN Convention Against Torture, and we've seen the criminalization of torture as well. We do hope that some of these issues will become a thing of the past and never in our history again, we'll have to.
What that came live is the total ignorance or unwillingness on the part of the authorities to run the prisons according to the Prison Act. I mean, that really, but what do you think should be done about that? Because obviously all the good laws can be made to improve the prison, but if there is an authority above, who is dictating to the people how to punish prisoner X as opposed to prisoner B, because we understand that in fact, people who went there, who were actual criminals, had a better life than people who have been implicated in some political opposition or something, because those people were specifically targeted for harassment and stuff like that. What do we learn as to the conduct of the officials running the prisons? Like the prison director, for example, wouldn't release a prisoner whose term is finished. He has to wait for authority somewhere.
So one of the lessons is that I think is that we should understand that dictatorships generally are not just a one-man show.
Yeah.
Yes, we have the most powerful somebody somewhere, but they're also enabled by people at strategic points, at strategic places. The Director General of Prison was one of those. Was enabling a very terrible system to go unquestioned in the Gambia. And unfortunately, we cannot have a perfect system if we don't have proper human beings or very professional people running this system. We can have all the laws, we can have all the great institutions, but if the average Gambian is not ready for change, sacrifice, and serve their country in the interest of national security, in the interest of national development, and so on and so forth, we're not going to move on. I mean, today, if you look at it, I don't want to say it, but I would say it, but Barrow, for instance, President Barrow has all the means to become a Jammeh.
Absolutely.
Yes. To become a Jammeh.
Yeah.
And if that's happening because we still don't have enough. Within the system, we don't have enough professionals who are ready to serve, the Gambia, irrespective of whatever problems. You're serving the Gambia.
Absolutely.
And that's very, very critical.
That's very important.
And that's a huge lesson that we must.
Prison director has a prison act which should guide him without consulting anybody. But he believed the president or the minister of interior has more powers than him, when actually the act gave him more powers to run that place without any interference. I mean, the rule is still there. The president can they lock them? But my law said, look, they must come with a warrant from the state, so I cannot keep candidate. All spelled out, but because somebody is above. So those are the things I think we've learned from this thing. You want to
I think we since Jammeh left, since this new regime came into power, we talk about the dictatorship, we talk about everywhere we went wrong, but what we hardly talk about or what we refuse to acknowledge is the role that we played as people in enabling Jammeh into what he was, and the fact that we are almost doing the same thing with this new dispensation. So we can talk about institutional reforms. We can talk about changing or building up institutions where there will be checks and balances, where there will be separation of power, where the powers of the executive will be limited. But who runs these institutions? There are laws, but who runs these institutions? Who makes sure that these laws are implemented, that they're enforced? It's the people. So like Kande said, if we are not ready to invest, if we are not ready to talk to our people, have honest and unfiltered conversations around how we are supposed to be the change that we want to see in our systems, in our government, in our country, we are going to be in the same place talking about the same issues over and over again. So until we do these things, I'm afraid we are going, and as we are now transitioning from a dictatorship to a democratic dispensation. At least that is what we want to believe, that is what we are working towards. But until and unless we change some of our attitudes towards how we work within the government, how we work outside of the government, and also how civil society works to hold government to account, how people work to hold officials they voted into office to account. All of this matters into making sure that we build a democratic state where the rights of every citizen, particularly those who are in the prison systems, are also respected.
That's why I will check the topic to exactly an issue which has a lot of relations with what you have raised. Last week, should be last week now, or sometime this week, the past few days, it turned out to be a very popular or famous youth leader in the person of Lamin Dabo, the executive director, or some say acting, has been removed. And I have discovered that that decision was not popular at all among the youths. And then, of course, people are questioning whether the authorities have any right to remove anybody just as they wish, or something has gone wrong. How did you react to that? Do you know Mr. Dabo himself?
Yes, I know him. I know him. I mean, he's a gentleman by all definition, and he's a very hardworking young man. I actually knew him well before he became executive director of the National Youth Council. Yeah. He's worked in the NYC for a long time, and he worked actually in youth activism in the Gambia for a long time, and he's credited with a lot of success here and there. Definitely.
Why do you think a large majority of the youth seem not to be happy with the decision? Why?
I think it's the nature in which the decision was made, and I think again we'll make reference to the Jammeh situation. Yeah. This is very much reminiscent of how Jammeh used to operate. Yes. You just hire and fire people at at what will, without just proper justification. Exactly.
Established procedures.
Yeah. So I read the letter that was supposedly sent to him, and it says the Ministry of Youth and Sports cause with the decision. Who made the decision? What was the decision? Yeah. Is that the right procedure? Yeah. Maybe not. So all of these are very, very important issues. Now, your government, and as a government, you have a responsibility to fix problems anywhere, and that includes, if the need be, firing people and hiring new people. Of course. There's no problem with that. Nobody should have any problem with that. But there should be a procedure. There should be due process. And you don't just remove somebody because you disagree with that. You can remove somebody because of there's something important. But unfortunately, in the case of Lamin, and we've seen since the DPS coming out to give some reasons for Lamin's firing.
What did he say exactly?
He said that Lamin is questioning government sometimes, and make reference to the NYC issuing press releases in the past without consulting with government and so on and so forth. Okay. But again, are those grounds enough for removal? In terms of the GO, I'm sure the DPS is much more familiar with the GO than I am probably. Right, yeah. But in the GO, you don't just fire somebody like that, because they've just issued a press release. Certainly not. There are procedures and so on.
Doctor, this would be a rough area for you. But what are your personal views?
I think, like you said, so there are issues of legality that people, whether it's legal or not. I am not very certain whether it's legal or not. But like we said, all these things need to follow due process. Yeah. And I've known him because we've worked together. Recently, I don't know him personally, but in the COVID response, him and his office were very helpful. They've been coming to help with the mobilizations and all that, the youth group. And so that's what we know about him. Yeah. So I think this all comes with the new transitions he talks about. So, government is now, the space is open. Like I can tell you in the press conference, it's not easy for us. People come and hold us accountable, and we just use it to learn from it. But now the space is open. That's why this discussion is happening. You have to say, look, this you did, is it legal, it's not legal, and it's our responsibility to come and explain. So I think the environment, there are some gains, and as we go, we will improve.
Well, my personal experience of Mr. Dawah had been, like you described, I found him to be a very competent youth worker, and in the process, I think I traveled with him once or so to some conference. I think people like Lamin and his colleagues in the youth sector of the Gambia has really done the Gambia a lot of gains. They have internationalized the Gambia's youth program to be very much admired, especially in Africa and beyond. Governments and institutions outside the Gambia have come here to understudy how the Gambia's youth sector is managed. And I had this confession from a minister who was overseeing this. He said, if we have the kind of quality technocrats at the youth, if we have them in the sports as we have in the youth sector, he's told me that our sports would have gone higher than it is. So, on Lamin, the Gambian youth sector have been really admired all over, and that's why I think we were even able to host international youth forums. Lamin has been, selected for so many international youth programs and organizations And I'm sure that is because of his quality. So that's how I know him. Of course, I know the government reserve rights to sack anybody they like, but then, like you said, I think it should follow due process. And Lamin seemed to be very popular. I have not seen anybody who has, anything adversely against Lamin. Everybody seemed to agree that he was doing a perfect job. So here is a group of people who really want to do something about it, and they've been the loudest in terms of condemning the decision to sack Lamin, and some even said it's for political reasons, etc. Lala, Touray, you were at a press conference yesterday. When I said you, I mean civic society organizations and young leaders who really were not happy about the decision. Tell me, what are you not happy about?
I don't even have to go back on everything that has been said about Lamin since he was dismissed. His work, his experience, his track record speaks for him. And like I've been saying, we are not happy about how Lamin was dismissed, but we don't want to personalize this, because this is not just about Lamin. This is about an entire institution. And like I said yesterday in our press conference, it really says a lot when somebody who holds a position as high as Deputy Permanent Secretary at the Ministry of Youth and Sports goes on national TV and unprofessionally says the kind of things that he said. That release that he was talking about,
that Lamin Quexon, the
release that he was talking about, that release was a decision. It came from the NYC as an institution. It did not come from the executive director. The council is made up of a chairperson, who is Dembo Kambi, and regional chairpersons. So these regional representatives and the chairperson, Lamin signs on their behalf. So when there is a release that they agree on, Lamin will sign it and put it out there.
So he was
he was doing his job.
And then the government felt he was questioning there. So.
Well, it came from the DPS. I don't know if that is the government stance, but it came from the DPS. So, and what we want as young people.
What was it exactly they said he was questioning? What was this policy?
Well, this happened when the young people went on the journey of the illegal migration. The Barra youth who died. So there was the NYC took a position on this.
The government is to blame for.
I'm not really sure what that release said, because until yesterday I was not even aware of that release. So I'm not sure of what the release said, but I do know that this was the issue that happened, and they took a position on that, and they took the side of the young people, which is their job. So, like I said, this is not just about Lamin, this is about an entire institution. And what we want at this point is not just the reinstatement of Lamin Dabo as the executive director. What we want is the NYC to be left out of partisan politics. What we want is the NYC to remain an institution that we can continue to work with as young leaders to impact change in our communities without having to worry about party affiliations, religious affiliations, demographic backgrounds, all of these things.
Did you have a feeling that the government suspects perhaps he's a member of an opposition political party, or they didn't want him to do something along political lines, so they felt that he should go? It was a bad influence on the youths, perhaps, they think.
I am not really sure, and I don't want to get into something that I am not 100% certain about, but all I know is the manner in which his dismissal was done was totally wrong, and what we want is the government to not be able to. We want autonomy.
Absolutely.
As an institution.
And the Act said so.
And well, when you come to the Act, there's a little confusion with the Act, because there are two separate acts. So we at this point we don't even know which Act the ministry is going by.
Of both councils, that's chairman.
That's the.
Should be a recommendation submitted to the head of state, etc.
That's the chairman.
But Lamin is an appointee.
Yes.
I mean, by normal standards.
Yes.
So he cannot be sacked without due process.
Exactly. So the manner in which it was done, it was really wrong, and there's been a debate of whether it is legal or not, and this should be ascertained by the Act. And at this point, there are two different acts. So what we want at this point is an amendment of the National Youth Act, because this will give us the independence that we need to be able to do our job with zero interference from government and politicians, from the executive. We won't be able. What we don't want to see again is a Jammeh system of governance, where you get to have a hand in how we do our job our work as youth leaders, as youth activists, who are working to impact change on the ground.
Wasn't there even a suggestion that people want to go to the streets? Is that your organization, or you know others who threatened to go into the street if he's not reinstated?
Well, we have a list of plans, a whole list of plans, and yes, if we have to, we will. If we have to take onto the streets, we will. And like I said, this is not just about Lamin, because a lot of people are trying to make it about, oh, it's just one person, he's dismissed. How do you know the next person is not going to do a better job? This is not just about Lamin. If we let Lamin go and they bring somebody else and they feel like that somebody else is not pushing their agenda forward, they just take him out like they took out Lamin. And that is what we are trying to avoid. We want to be independent in executing our mandate, in working together with the NYC to impact positive change on the lives of every young person in this country. And we cannot do that if at the back of our mind we are threatened that at any point a minister can just write a letter and dismiss our executive.
So did you end up submitting a position on it?
Well, Lamin on his personal level has written back to the ministry, and I believe he has also written to the Secretary of State. But on our part, we're working on a petition, which will be out by Monday, and we've also took a stance as civil society that if they do not reinstate Lamin, if they go ahead and make another an appointment of another executive director, we will boycott the NYC. We will not work with the NYC again. And the civil society, the youth civil society of the Gambia, they have labeled us so many times. They do not value us, but we have numbers and we have influence. So I'm not sure what they're going to do if we boycott NYC. Are they going to form new organizations? Who is going to run these organizations? What experiences are they going to have and all that stuff? But on our stance, we are going to boycott NYC and we are going to form an institution of our own, and we will take our partners with us.
Wow, that is a strong message. Yes. That's quite a position, strong position. So, well, yes, finally, of course, on the general topics we discussed, we go back to the COVID doctor. Can you tell us now, do you expect the land and sea borders to continue to be open, sporadically, if not totally? I had ECOWAS recommending that at least sea or land borders should be open by July the 30th. Do you have a feeling that from your committee level that this government is going to do that?
So I think like it's dynamic. It's so dynamic. If you asked me 1 week ago what my perspective would have been, it keeps changing quickly. And yes, I think from what you have seen from the leaders in the region and the world is that we are moving towards trying to live with the disease. That is trying to ease the restrictions as much as possible, and then try to observe all the precautionary and preventive measures. But this should take in cognition the level and what is happening in your country. It should not be just a flat statement for everybody like that. So every country will review how they are doing, what they are doing, and come on stages as how they will ease in the restrictions.
How far are we from a safe vaccine?
Wow, that's a difficult one, because you see, for example, I, as a doctor, believe that the vaccine is the way out. But if you sample the population in the country, you are even afraid to talk about vaccine, because people have very different ideas and connotations about the vaccine. And I can tell you, with this type of diseases, if you have a vaccine that is working, it will prevent the disease. So I think it's good that we are bringing up now, because if there is a vaccine and there's need for trials, I can tell you that from the samples we are hearing from the population, they are not in for it at all. And this is one way that is going to help us to prevent the disease from going forward.
And the only way to advance science, that is, in all adventures, is to get people participate in trials.
In trials, exactly.
But already you are saying that people's perception of this COVID vaccine is already too poisonous.
Yes.
That you may even have people who really will volunteer to take part in the trials.
Yeah, there will be a lot of theories. There will be a lot of theories as to this vaccine is to do this, and that has disturbed a lot of countries in West Africa in all the vaccines that have happened.
Yes, right.
So trials is good, and sometimes just doing the testing in Europe and Caucasians may work there. Yeah. And then if you don't do the trials, you assume you will get the same benefits, and you bring the vaccine, it may not be. So that's why it's sometimes very good to be involved in these studies, but you have to take all the safeguards. That's why in this country we have a good system of checking before we are part of any research. We have ethics committee, we have the research coordinating committees to look at all that before we are involved in it.
Finally, then on the COVID.
Well, on the COVID, I do hope that people will take more seriously the precaution and be more responsible in terms of trying to normalize living with coronavirus. On the issue of the civil society, I'm very impressed that civil society has emerged to be a bit more organized, especially in the case of Lamin, because it's really been very disorganized, I have to say. But it's good to see that they look a bit more organized in this case and have much more concrete objectives in terms of what they want, not just reinstate Lamin and so on and so forth, but in terms of repealing or sort of amending the Youth Act and so on and so forth. I do hope that this thing will be followed to the end of it, and you don't just do 1 or 2 weeks of activism and then it dies down, because that's been the trend in many cases in the past.
Now I want really to confine this other issue with you. I mean, you teach in this GTU School of Journalism, etc. Recently, there have been an information bill, tabled for Parliament. How, in your experience, do you think this will help access information for journalists in this country?
This is a very important law, especially for me as a journalist, but more also as a researcher. Doc has mentioned a lot of reference to research and so on and so forth. Access to information is a major problem in the Gambia, simply because the dictatorship experience, but also there are a lot of laws that restrict, especially public servants, from sharing information. So an access to information law basically would open up access to public information. So it's not government secrets or state secrets or trade secrets and so on and so forth, no. But public information that is beneficial for the progress of society, that is made available to everybody, and it's organized and also archived. So this is very important in terms of developing and moving. And we live in a digital society. We call the information society. So if you don't have information, you are behind.
What chances do that it will pass?
I was at Parliament when it was tabled. I mean, the report from the Select Committee was tabled and adopted. It looks very positive.
Some parliamentarians reacted with a sweeping criticism of the media, and some expressed apprehension as to when they are free now to access all kinds of information, what are they going to do? Are they not going to set us on fire? Or
so on. I think there's something that people should be aware is that based on research, especially in the many countries that have access to information law, in West Africa we have about 9 so far, is that the largest constituency, the largest user of access to information law is definitely not journalists. Because you and I know as journalists we are time bound.
Exactly.
So because of that, we really don't make use of access to information laws a lot.
Also,
otherwise it's researchers, health workers particularly, development workers, NGOs and so on and so forth that really benefit a lot.
So it's not, it shouldn't be considered as just journalists for the purpose of journalism, but for everybody in academia and other things.
Yeah, and that's very critical, and I do hope that National Assembly members will pay attention to that and look more towards the positive issues that will come about in an access to information law, and not fear much about we're opening this country and so on, because it's about transparency.
Absolutely.
If you don't have anything to hide, why worry?
Why worry? Why worried about something? All right, thank you very much, Demba Kande, University of the Gambia lecturer, and Dr. Mustafa Bittaye, of course, Director of Health, and Lala Kanyi, a youth activist. Lala, I said Lala. You know what? I have a Lala Kanyi from my village. I don't know how come I remember that. So, Lala Touray, thank you for that. Thank you very much for coming and sharing your thoughts with us. So, on behalf of my panelists here, I wish you have a great weekend. Until we come back your way, bye-bye.
Yara nyilla domoro ka diate.
Boy, janno Sikes restaurant.
Sa na ko be ni na dimbal. Nimba domoro kala janno.
Domoro seneyata adiyata topotoro fanan kende ma bije. Luntan during tamala abeka domoro ki janni. Adi manda wala de. Teka we bijele anim fanan ka fadi jang ikono e fa. E ka fa minne ko pastry anim bakery. Iko fanan be kalele. Badde lomba conference lomba workshop lomba ye fo pendin lo dunia kono. Domoro betama nyilom international otoda number 1.
Amanke ba domola jang damman.
Esa domo jang is atariya.
Wo mu kubandi.
Sa na ko sa futandin.
Oto sa na ko be mu Sikes restaurant.
Dafa na janna mu yat ni manje dorom bijam.
Aban.
Sikes restaurant, known for best quality food and customer satisfaction.
Miss V Designer Outlet is the #1 quality and affordable stop shop for all your needs. Get your evening dresses, suit and ties, office wears for both ladies and gentlemen, beach wears, sport wears, pure leather shoes for men, quality belts, bags, heels for our beautiful ladies, original perfumes, accessories, and a lot more. Find us at Kololini Road opposite Gaddafi Mosque at the Aqua Bridge Station, or call us on 295-3411 or 764-2486. Miss B Designer Outlet. Shop right, look good.